affordable cost, but continue to expand because it's a conundrum normally that if you need to have good education, quality education, and at an affordable cost, it can only be the government which can fund it. And private sector growth in education has been subsequently speedier, but also involved some amount of money, both for the expansion of the institution and for cost of bearing the growing pay scales of staff. So there's always been this conundrum which got accentuated because educational institutions in India are registered as non-profit institutions. They are societies of trust which don't earn anything out of what they do as business, and everything which comes out of the turnover goes back to them. Whereas there's also been a huge cry that if quality and also the pay scales which are to be respectively kept up, more money is needed, and therefore an element of profit will have to be brought into the education scheme of things. But that debate goes on, and I'm not wading into that. But even without getting into the debate, we are able to see that quality institutions in India can survive and do good work even as they are from the private sector. My education, particularly my collegiate education, has also been in a tier 2 town, a private institution, post which I went to JNU, and at no point in time did I feel less endowed just because I come from a tier 2 town, or just because I come from a small institution which is a private institution. So, first of all, in India, education and its benefits have reached, despite government, both in primary and in higher education, moving along to provide education for those who cannot afford basic education, and that should continue. I'm in very much favor of government being in education from primary to higher secondary to higher education as well, because that serves a very big area in far-flung areas as well as for families which really can't afford even bare minimum cost. However, it will be a terrible injustice if we think private sector contribution in India's education is not significant. Actually, it's more than significant. And institutions like R.V. Group of Institutions prove that. It is not just looking at teachers training with which you started. Later on, you spread over to bringing in the PU College for Women, and now you seem to be providing across the spectrum the higher education portfolios which are so required for choice, and all this for women. There was a time when in India you had only one all-women university, and I'm sure most of you all know about it, the SNDT in Bombay, which is now Mumbai. But there are even more institutions. Yours is an institution of excellence, sooner to be. So institutions which have been so focused on women's education have done very well indeed, because your faculty also, as I was listening, is a very dedicated set of faculty. You have a teaching college, and therefore you know what makes a good teacher. You've selected good teachers, and they continue to be absolutely dedicated to this institution, as a result of which the virtuous cycle of one do-good gets into another do-good, and a final circle of good students coming out of this institution happens. At this point in time, I would underline the fact, and they get to coming to schools for teaching students. The most important point is your curriculum is given to you, somebody is writing the curriculum somewhere, and that curriculum is handed to you to hand it over to the students. And now, of course, the new education policy, I was talking to Minister R.V. Narayan, the new education policy brings in a lot of flexibility. It allows you to put in your element of what you think is so important in your institute. It gives a great deal of flexibility. And I hope that flexibility is also utilized by the teachers, because the transaction of activity, the teaching and learning in the classroom cannot be tailor-made. It is the teacher's chemistry and the student's chemistry which make a classroom very, very vibrant. And only vibrant classrooms have very strong impact on students, their immediate academic performance, but more importantly, when they go out, they are far more rounded personality, and such personalities always do remember that one teacher who made a very big impact on our lives. It is that chemistry which in a classroom environment, which remains as long as the student, wherever he or she is going about her life's experiences. And that is why you can never replace a teacher through an automated system, through online learning. All that is fantastic. You need to use it because of today's technology. But the impact a teacher has, the chemistry that she builds in a classroom, the relationship she maintains with you to convey good thoughts, provocative thoughts, are all critical to learn. I still recall a lot of my teachers, and I can even attribute some of my traits to my teachers. And therefore that's where it becomes flavorful. Yes, I'm a BA degree holder, I'm a MA degree holder. All right, I've done an MPhil, I have not completed my PhD. In fact, that's one of the things I would like a little correction in my introduction. I'm no doctor yet. I haven't finished my PhD. But then the fact is, at every stage you can always accumulate degrees. But what brings more value to it is when you know what chemistry, what little flavor the teacher gave you with. I can remember from my primary school to my, Masters and MPhil, some of the teachers were splendid. And therefore it is that which I say, which brings that value to education, which any amount of digital learning cannot really fully achieve. I'm not discouraging digital learning. It can be a very vital and useful tool. But it is important to have teachers and students transact between them the learning experience. Also at this time, it wouldn't be inappropriate for me to speak about how value systems are critical for learning. There can always be controversies. Oh God, a minister from the BJP government comes and speaks about value. I'm not worried about that. BJP government or any other government, a minister speaking about value need not be a surprise, because it is that value which many of our institutions bring into the school's environment, the learning environment. And the value systems are not narrow value systems which are attributed to one particular set of beliefs. They are universal. They are universal value systems. And therefore it doesn't matter when I say value systems, I'm not preaching for this or that, but values remain universal, and therefore I will definitely preach for that. And without that imparting of values in schools and in colleges, even as you get more and more degrees and come out of it. Come out with flying colors because you've got the marks and the grades. There is still something hollow about you. And when you are hollow in some part of yourself, that's where complexes set in. You feel inferior or you feel superior. You become a bully or you become a victim. Schools and colleges cannot afford to give that hollowness to any child. It is that hollowness which has to be filled by the institution and its teachers. You may be extraordinary in Tamil or you may be extraordinary in Kannada, but between the two there is no conflict. If you're extraordinarily good in one, it doesn't mean you have the right to put down
ಇವತ್ತು ಸಮಾಜ ಎಷ್ಟು ಉತ್ತಮವಾಗಿ ನಾವು ಶಿಕ್ಷಣಕ್ಕೆ ಒತ್ತಡ ಕೊಡ್ತೀವೋ ಅಷ್ಟು ಉತ್ತಮವಾಗಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಭವಿಷ್ಯವನ್ನು ಸಮಾಜದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಕಾಣಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಇವತ್ತು ಸಮಾಜದ ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಬ್ಬ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿಯ ಏನೇ ಸವಾಲು ಸಮಸ್ಯೆಗಳು ಸಮಾಜದಾಗಲಿ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿದಾಗಲಿ ದೇಶದಾಗಲಿ ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ಸಮಸ್ಯೆಗಳು ಪರಿಹಾರ ಕಾಣುವಂಥ 360 ಡಿಗ್ರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಏನೇ ನಾವು ಬಗೆಹರಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕು ಉತ್ತಮಗೊಳಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕು ನಾವು ನಮ್ಮ ಕನಸನ್ನು ನನಸು ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕು ಅದು ಗುಣಮಟ್ಟದ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣದ ಮೂಲಕ ಮಾತ್ರ ಸಾಧ್ಯವಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಗುಣಮಟ್ಟದ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣವನ್ನು ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರುವಂಥ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆ ನಮ್ಮ R.V ಸಂಸ್ಥೆ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ನಾನು R.V ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಗೆ ನನ್ನ ಪ್ರಯಾಣವನ್ನು ಹೇಗೆ ಪ್ರಾರಂಭವನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿದೆ ನೀವು ನೋಡಬಹುದು. ಪ್ರಥಮವಾಗಿ ಕೆಪಾಸಿಟಿ ಬಿಲ್ಡಿಂಗ್, ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್ ಟ್ರೈನಿಂಗ್ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಟಿಂದ ಪ್ರಾರಂಭವನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿದೆ. ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್ ಟ್ರೈನಿಂಗ್ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಟಿಂದ ಪ್ರಾರಂಭವನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿ ಹಂತವಾಗಿ ಅವರು ಸಮಾಜದ ಅವಶ್ಯಕತೆಗಳನ್ನು ಅರಿತುಕೊಂಡು ಒಳ್ಳೊಳ್ಳೆ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಗಳನ್ನು ಸ್ಥಾಪನೆಯನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ನಾನು ನನ್ನ ಸರ್ಕಾರದ ಪರವಾಗಿ ನಾಡಿನ ಜನತೆಯ ಪರವಾಗಿ ರಾಷ್ಟ್ರೀಯ ವಿದ್ಯಾಲಯ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಯ ಏನು ಹಲವಾರು ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಗಳನ್ನು ಸ್ಥಾಪನೆ ಮಾಡಿರೋದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾನು ಮತ್ತೊಮ್ಮೆ ಈ ಸಮಸ್ತ ಹಿರಿಯರು ಈಗಿನ ಅಧಿಕಾರ ವಹಿಸಿಕೊಂಡಿರುವಂಥ ಟ್ರಸ್ಟಿಗಳು ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಗಳು ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಾನು ಹೃದಯಪೂರ್ವಕವಾಗಿ ಅಭಿನಂದನೆಗಳನ್ನು ಮತ್ತೊಮ್ಮೆ ಸಲ್ಲಿಸ್ತೇನೆ. The kind of changes what is being brought in the national policy is immense. The impact is also the measurement, even if you measure, it is not just 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 10 times. The impact is 100 times if you compare with the earlier education policy and the present education policy. So much of flexibility, it is completely student-centered. The students are getting a great opportunity to get a great future. For them to compete because we don't have any boundaries now. Jai Kannada.